Introduction: the hidden code behind our habits. Imagine waking up every day, determined to change, only to find yourself slipping back into old habits before noon. You tell yourself, this time will be different. You make a plan. You promise yourself that you'll stay strong, and yet somehow, by the end of the day, you've fallen into the same patterns. You feel frustrated, maybe even defeated. Sound familiar? You're not alone. Most people believe that breaking bad habits is simply a matter of willpower. If they just try harder, push through the resistance, and force themselves to make better choices, they'll eventually succeed. But science tells a very different story. The reality is that willpower alone is not enough. It's unreliable, inconsistent, and often depleted when we need it most. That's because habits aren't just conscious decisions. They are deeply ingrained, automatic programs running in our subconscious minds. Think about it. When was the last time you had to remind yourself how to brush your teeth or how to tie your shoes? These behaviors are so deeply embedded in your brain that they happen effortlessly without thought. That's exactly how bad habits work too. The more you repeat them, the stronger they become, until they feel like an unshakable part of who you are. But here's the good news. Habits are not permanent. They can be rewritten. Your brain is not a fixed machine, but a dynamic system capable of change. With the right strategies, you can reprogram your mind, overwrite old habits, and create new ones that serve you better. This audiobook is not about forcing yourself to change. It's about working with your brain rather than against it to make transformation effortless and lasting. What you'll gain from this audiobook. This isn't just another book about habits. It's a science-backed, step-by-step system designed to help you understand why you do what you do and how to change it at the deepest level. You'll learn the real reason bad habits feel impossible to break and how to dismantle them at their core. How to rewire your brain using proven psychological and neurological techniques. The hidden triggers that keep you stuck in destructive loops and how to break free from them. How to replace bad habits with powerful, positive ones that stick for life. Practical exercises and real-world strategies that make change feel natural rather than forced. By the time you finish this audiobook, you won't just have knowledge, you'll have a blueprint for transformation. You'll no longer feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. Instead, you'll be in control, making changes that last, not just for a few days or weeks, but for a lifetime. Are you ready to unlock the hidden code behind your habits? Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Psychology of Habits. Why we do what we do. Have you ever found yourself reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, even before getting out of bed? Or automatically opening the fridge when you're bored, not even hungry? These behaviors feel almost instinctive, as if they happen on their own. That's because they do. They are habits, deeply wired routines that operate beneath the surface of your awareness. But how do these habits form? Why do some stick effortlessly while others seem impossible to break? And most importantly, how can we take control of them instead of letting them control us? The habit loop. How habits are formed. Every habit follows a simple 3-step loop. Cue. Trigger. This is the signal that initiates the habit. It can be external, like the smell of coffee in the morning, or internal, like feeling stressed. Routine behavior. This is the action you take in response to the cue, like drinking coffee, biting your nails, or checking social media. Reward. This is the benefit your brain receives from completing the routine, such as the caffeine rush, temporary relaxation, or social validation. Over time, this loop becomes automatic. The more we repeat it, the stronger the connection between the cue and the routine becomes, until it feels like second nature. The brain's efficiency mode. Why habits feel automatic. Your brain is an energy-conserving machine. It is constantly looking for ways to streamline tasks, so you don't have to use conscious effort for every little action. Imagine if you had to relearn how to walk every morning, or figure out how to brush your teeth from scratch. That would be exhausting. Instead, your brain builds neural pathways, like well-worn roads, to make repetitive tasks more efficient. This is why habits, once formed, become incredibly hard to break. Your brain wants to keep using the same pathways because it saves energy. Even when you know a habit is harmful, like procrastinating, stress eating, or staying up too late, your brain still pushes you toward it because it's the easier, more familiar route. Why the brain resists change. If you've ever tried to break a bad habit, you've likely experienced the frustrating resistance that comes with it. That's because the brain doesn't just store habits, it strengthens them over time. The more you repeat a behavior, the thicker and stronger the neural pathways become, making the habit more automatic. Imagine carving a path through a forest. The first time, it's difficult. You have to push past branches and clear a way through. But the more you walk the same path, the more defined it becomes, until eventually, it's the easiest route to take. Now, imagine trying to take a completely different path. It feels unnatural, difficult, and requires effort. That's exactly what happens when we try to break old habits and form new ones. The dopamine trap, how pleasure shapes our behaviors. At the heart of every habit, good or bad, is a powerful chemical, dopamine. This neurotransmitter is the driving force behind motivation and reward. Every time you engage in a habit that brings pleasure, whether it's eating junk food, smoking, or scrolling through social media, your brain releases dopamine, reinforcing the habit loop. This is why bad habits are often more addictive than good ones. The immediate gratification of sugary snacks, video games, or impulse shopping releases a flood of dopamine, making these habits incredibly hard to resist. On the other hand, good habits like exercising, eating healthy, or waking up early often don't provide an instant reward, making them harder to stick to. Understanding this is crucial because it reveals an important truth. We don't just form habits by choice, we form them based on what feels rewarding to our brain. If we want to change our habits, we must learn to hack our dopamine system and shift our rewards. Example story. The coffee-addicted professional meet Daniel. He's a 35-year-old marketing executive who needs coffee to function in the morning. Every day, his alarm rings at 6:30 a.m., and before he even opens his eyes fully, he's stumbling into the kitchen to brew his first cup. He doesn't think about it. He just does it. It's automatic. Daniel believes his coffee addiction is about caffeine, but in reality, it's something much deeper. Let's break down his habit loop. Cue. His alarm rings, signaling the start of the day. Routine. He makes and drinks coffee. Reward. The warmth of the cup, the aroma, the first sip. It all provides comfort, signaling his brain that he's awake and ready to start the day. But what happens when Daniel tries to quit coffee? He feels groggy, sluggish, and irritable. Not just because of caffeine withdrawal, but because his brain has lost a familiar routine and a reliable source of reward. He's not just missing the stimulant, he's missing the entire experience. This is the key reason breaking habits is so difficult. We don't just crave the substance or action, we crave the comfort, the ritual, and the reward. Key takeaway: understanding is not enough. We must override old habits. Simply knowing why we do what we do isn't enough to create real change. We need to actively override our automatic habit loops and rewire our brains for better behaviors. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the science of neuroplasticity, how our brains can reshape themselves, and how we can use this to our advantage. Because if habits are just neural pathways, then we have the power to create new ones that serve us better. Are you ready to take control of your habits? Let's continue. Chapter 2, Why We Struggle to Break Bad Habits. You decide to break a bad habit. You feel motivated, determined. You tell yourself, this time I'll stick to it. But a few days pass, and the old habit creeps back in. Before you know it, you're right back where you started, frustrated and wondering why change feels so impossible. You're not alone. Breaking bad habits is one of the hardest things we face, not because we lack willpower, but because our brains are wired to resist change. Understanding this is the first step to overcoming it. The myth of self-discipline, why motivation fades and willpower depletes. Most people believe that the secret to breaking bad habits is self-discipline. If only we were strong enough, if we had more willpower, we could stop procrastinating, quit smoking, or eat healthier. But science tells a different story. Willpower is like a muscle. It gets exhausted with overuse. You might resist that chocolate cake at breakfast, but by the end of the day, after making dozens of other decisions, your willpower is depleted, and suddenly you find yourself reaching for it. This is why motivation alone never lasts. It's easy to feel inspired in the morning, but as the day wears on, stress, fatigue, and old habits take over. The key isn't forcing change through willpower. It's making change effortless by rewiring your brain. The The comfort zone effect. Why your brain prefers familiarity. Imagine you're walking through a dense forest. There are two paths. One is well-trodden, easy to follow, and familiar. The other is overgrown, barely visible, and requires effort to navigate. Which path do you instinctively take? The familiar one, of course. Your brain works the same way. It favors what it knows, even if what it knows is harmful. This is why bad habits are so hard to break. Your brain has traveled the same neural pathway so many times that it feels like the only option. Change feels uncomfortable, even threatening. Your brain sends signals like, just this once won't hurt. I've been doing this for years. Why stop now? It's too hard to change. These thoughts aren't facts. They're resistance mechanisms. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you from the discomfort of the unknown. But if you want to break free, you must step out of your comfort zone and create a new path, one that, over time, will feel just as natural as the old one. Triggers and cravings, the unseen forces behind bad habits. Have you ever noticed that certain situations or emotions make you fall back into bad habits? You don't just randomly scroll through social media, overeat, or procrastinate. There's always a trigger. A trigger is anything that cues your brain to follow a habitual pattern. It could be an emotion. Stress triggers smoking. Boredom triggers snacking. A location. Walking into the kitchen triggers mindless eating. A time of day. Late nights trigger binge watching TV. A person. Seeing an old friend triggers drinking. Once the trigger appears, your brain craves the habit's reward. You don't just crave smoking, you crave relief from stress. You don't crave scrolling social media, you crave distraction. If you don't recognize your triggers, you'll always be caught in the cycle of bad habits. The key is to interrupt the loop. When you feel a craving coming on, ask yourself, what triggered this? What am I actually craving? Comfort, escape, distraction. Can I replace this habit with something healthier? By identifying triggers, you can take back control instead of being controlled. The identity factor. Why who you believe you are shapes your habits. If you ask someone trying to quit smoking, "Do you smoke?" and they respond with, "I'm trying to quit," they still identify as a smoker. "I don't smoke." They have adopted a new identity. Guess who is more likely to succeed? The second person. This is the secret most people overlook. Lasting change isn't just about actions, it's about identity. Your habits are a reflection of how you see yourself. If you believe, "I'm a procrastinator," you'll always procrastinate. "I'm an emotional eater," you'll always turn to food for comfort. "I'm bad with money," you'll always struggle financially. To truly break a bad habit, you must shift your identity. Instead of saying, "I need to quit smoking," say, "I am a non-smoker." Instead of saying, "I need to stop procrastinating," say, "I am the kind of person who takes action immediately." This small shift is powerful because your brain always seeks to stay consistent with your identity. When you believe you are something, your actions will follow. Example story. 2 people quitting smoking. Meet Sarah and James. Both have been smoking for 10 years. Both decide to quit. Sarah tells herself, "I'm trying to quit." Every time she declines a cigarette, she feels like she's denying herself something she still wants. She's using willpower to resist, but deep down, she still sees herself as a smoker. James, on the other hand, says, "I don't smoke." He sees himself as a non-smoker. When someone offers him a cigarette, he doesn't feel tempted because that's not who he is anymore. Fast forward 6 months, James has successfully quit, while Sarah is still struggling. The difference wasn't willpower, it was identity. Key takeaway: breaking bad habits is about rewiring identity, not just resistance. If you focus only on resisting bad habits, you'll always struggle. But if you change your identity, the habit becomes irrelevant. Instead of forcing yourself to eat healthy, become a healthy eater. Instead of pushing yourself to wake up early, become an early riser. Instead of fighting procrastination, become someone who takes action immediately. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to rewire your brain step by step so that good habits become effortless and bad habits lose their grip. Because real change isn't about forcing yourself to be different. It's about becoming the person who naturally makes better choices. Are you ready to shift your identity? Let's move forward. Chapter 3, The Science of Reprogramming. How to hack your brain for change. You've tried to break bad habits before. You've set goals, made promises to yourself, and started strong, only to find yourself slipping back into old patterns. It's frustrating. It makes you wonder, am I just wired this way? The answer is no. You're not stuck with your habits. Your brain is designed to change. The key is understanding how to work with it rather than against it. This chapter dives into the science of habit formation and, more importantly, habit transformation. With the right approach, you can rewire your brain, making change feel natural instead of forced. Neuroplasticity 101. Your brain isn't fixed. It's constantly rewiring itself. For decades, scientists believed that the brain was static, that once you reached adulthood, your neural pathways were set in stone. But modern neuroscience has proven otherwise. Your brain is incredibly adaptable. It has a quality called neuroplasticity, which means it's constantly reorganizing itself based on your thoughts, experiences, and actions. Every time you repeat a behavior, you strengthen the neural connections associated with it. This is how habits form. The more you practice a habit, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. The less you use a habit, the weaker the neural connection gets. Imagine your brain as a forest. The first time you walk a new path, it's rough, overgrown, and difficult to navigate. But the more you walk it, the clearer and more defined the path becomes. Meanwhile, old, unused paths start to fade. This means that breaking bad habits isn't about erasing them. It's about weakening their pathways while strengthening new ones. You're not fighting against your brain. You're redirecting it. The 21-day myth debunked. How long does it really take to change a habit? You've probably heard the claim. It takes 21 days to form a new habit. But where does this idea come from? In the 1950s, a plastic surgeon named Maxwell Maltz noticed that it took his patients about 21 days to adjust to changes in their appearance. Somehow, this observation turned into a pop psychology rule that habits take 21 days to form. But research tells a different story. A study from University College London found that, on average, it takes 66 days for a new habit to become automatic. But here's the catch. Some habits take less time. Drinking a glass of water every morning might only take a few weeks. Some take much longer. Changing deep-rooted behaviors, like emotional eating, can take months. So instead of fixating on a magic number, focus on consistency. The goal isn't to force a habit for 21 or 66 days. It's to make small, repeatable changes until the new behavior feels natural. The role of environment. Your surroundings either reinforce or sabotage change. Most people think habits are about willpower, but your environment plays a far bigger role than you realize. Consider this. If you keep cookies on your kitchen counter, you'll eat more cookies. If your phone is next to your bed, you'll scroll before sleep. If you surround yourself with people who complain, you'll find yourself complaining more. Your environment triggers your behaviors. The best way to reprogram your brain is to reshape your surroundings so that good habits become effortless and bad habits become harder. Simple environmental tweaks can make a massive difference. Want to read more? Leave a book on your pillow. Want to exercise? Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Want to eat healthier? Keep junk food out of sight and put healthy snacks front and center. Instead of relying on self-control, design an environment that pulls you toward better choices automatically. Example story. How a man overcame nighttime snacking without willpower. Meet Mark. Every night, he found himself raiding the fridge, even when he wasn't hungry. He knew it was a bad habit, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop. At first, he blamed his lack of willpower, but after learning about habit triggers and environment, he decided to experiment. Instead of trying to resist the habit, he made small changes. He stopped keeping junk food in the house. If he really wanted a snack, he'd have to go out and buy it, which was inconvenient. He replaced his nighttime routine. Instead of sitting in front of the TV, a trigger for snacking, he started drinking tea and reading before bed. He changed his identity. Instead of saying, "I need to stop late-night snacking," he started telling himself, "I'm the kind of person who eats mindfully." At first, the cravings were strong, but within weeks, his brain adapted. The new routine became his default, and the urge to snack at night faded. Mark didn't rely on willpower. He reprogrammed his brain by changing his environment and identity. Key takeaway: small, intentional tweaks can retrain your brain effortlessly. The secret to breaking bad habits and forming new ones isn't forcing change. It's making small, intentional adjustments that work with your brain instead of against it. Your brain is designed to change. Neuroplasticity means you can rewire any habit with repetition. Forget the 21-day myth. Focus on consistency, not a magic number. Your environment is shaping your habits. Design it to support the behaviors you want. Willpower isn't the answer. Make good habits easy and bad habits inconvenient. You don't need to force yourself to change. When you apply these principles, change becomes natural. In the next chapter, we'll dive even deeper into the psychology of reinforcement, so you can lock in new habits and make them last for life. Chapter 4, Step-by-Step Process to Rewire Your Habits. Most people try to change their habits the wrong way. They rely on sheer willpower, force themselves to resist temptation, and hope for the best. But this approach rarely works. The truth is, habits aren't about discipline. They're about systems. If you understand how your habits work, you can rewire them without constant struggle. In this chapter, we'll break down a step-by-step process to help you interrupt bad habits, install better ones, and make change effortless. Step 1. Identify your habit loop. Recognizing cues, routines, and rewards. Every habit follows the same loop. Cue, the trigger that starts the habit, e.g., stress, boredom, a certain time of day. Routine, the behavior itself, e.g., scrolling social media, smoking, snacking. Reward, the benefit your brain gets, e.g., dopamine hit, relaxation, distraction. To change a habit, you first need to understand what's driving it. For example, if you check your phone every 5 minutes, ask yourself, what triggers this? Cue, boredom? A notification sound? What do I do? Routine. Open social media. Scroll aimlessly. What do I get from it? Reward. A sense of distraction? A small dopamine rush? Once you identify this pattern, you can start reprogramming it. Step 2. Disrupt the trigger, changing your response to automatic patterns. Most bad habits are triggered by the same predictable cues. The key isn't to resist them, but to disrupt them. Example, if you always snack while watching TV, the cue isn't hunger, it's the act of watching TV itself. How to disrupt it? Change your environment, e.g. move snacks out of reach. Swap the routine, e.g. drink tea instead of snacking. Alter the cue, e.g. sit somewhere new while watching TV. By breaking the automatic cycle, you weaken the habit's grip on you. Step 3. Replace, don't remove. Substituting bad habits with healthier alternatives. A common mistake people make is trying to eliminate a bad habit without replacing it. This leaves a void, which your brain hates. Instead, find a replacement behavior that satisfies the same reward. Example, trying to quit smoking? Replace the oral fixation with chewing gum. Always checking social media? Replace it with reading a short article. Snacking out of boredom? Replace it with stretching or drinking water. Your brain needs a substitute, or it will default back to the old habit. Step 4. The 2-minute rule, making good habits easier to stick with. One of the biggest reasons habits fail is starting too big. The 2-minute rule makes change feel effortless by shrinking it down. The idea, if a habit takes less than 2 minutes to start, do it. Example, instead of committing to work out for an hour, start with 2 minutes of stretching. Instead of reading a book, commit to reading 1 page. Instead of writing a journal entry, write 1 sentence. Why does this work? Because starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, momentum takes over. Over time, the small habit grows naturally. Step 5. Reinforce with rewards. The psychology behind self-reward systems. Habits stick when they feel good. Your brain needs instant gratification, or it won't stay motivated. The trick? Pair new habits with small, immediate rewards. Examples. Only allow yourself to watch Netflix after working out. Reward yourself with a fancy coffee after completing deep work. Give yourself a sticker or check mark on a habit tracker every time you follow through. The brain loves positive reinforcement. The more rewarding a habit feels, the more likely it is to stick. Example story. How a woman conquered procrastination using micro-habit stacking. Sarah was a chronic procrastinator. She wanted to write every day, but she always found excuses to avoid it. Instead of forcing herself to just do it, she applied habit stacking and the 2-minute rule. She attached writing to an existing habit. After making her morning coffee, she wrote for just 2 minutes. She kept it ridiculously easy. She didn't force herself to write full pages, just 1 sentence. She used instant rewards. After writing, she rewarded herself with her favorite playlist. At first, it seemed like nothing, but after a few weeks, 2 minutes turned into 10 minutes, then 30. Soon, writing became automatic. Sarah didn't battle procrastination. She outsmarted it with tiny, consistent wins. Key takeaway: changing habits is a process, not a battle of willpower. Transforming habits isn't about fighting against your old patterns. It's about understanding and redesigning them. Identify the habit loop. Recognize the cues, routines, and rewards driving your habits. Disrupt the trigger. Change the automatic response that keeps you stuck. Replace, don't remove. Swap bad habits with healthier alternatives. Use the 2-minute rule. Make good habits so easy that you can't fail. Reinforce with rewards. Make change feel good, so your brain sticks with it. By applying these steps, you'll rewire your brain in a way that makes good habits automatic and bad habits obsolete without the struggle. Chapter 5: Mindset and Identity Shifts, the missing link to habit change. Most people focus on what they want to do: exercise more, eat healthier, wake up earlier, but they ignore the deeper question: who do I need to become? If you keep seeing yourself as a night owl, you'll always struggle to wake up early. If you believe I have no self-control, you'll keep giving in to bad habits. Lasting habit change isn't just about behavior, it's about identity. Why identity beats discipline. Discipline fades, but identity sticks. A smoker who's trying to quit might say, "I'm trying to stop smoking," but a non-smoker simply says, "I don't smoke." The difference? Identity. When you shift your identity, the right behaviors become automatic. If you identify as a healthy person, you'll naturally make better food choices. A productive person, you'll stop procrastinating without forcing yourself. An early riser, you'll wake up early without needing motivation. The key is to become the person who already has the habits you want. The power of affirmations and self-talk. Your brain is always listening to what you say about yourself. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm bad at sticking to habits," "I have no willpower," "I always fail at dieting," your brain will make sure that's true. Instead, speak the identity you want to embody. "I am the kind of person who eats healthy. I follow through on my commitments. I am someone who enjoys exercise." It might feel strange at first, but over time, your brain starts aligning your actions with your words. The role of visualization. High-performing athletes don't just train physically, they train mentally. They visualize, winning the game before it happens, crossing the finish line before they even start running, executing the perfect routine before stepping onto the field. Why does this work? Because the brain doesn't distinguish between real and imagined experiences. If you visualize yourself waking up early, going to the gym, or making healthy choices, your brain rewires itself to make those actions feel natural. Try this. Before bed, close your eyes and visualize yourself successfully following your habit, step by step. Feel the success. The more real it feels, the easier it will be to follow through. Example story. How an overweight man transformed into a fitness enthusiast. Mike had always struggled with his weight. He tried every diet, joined countless gyms, but nothing stuck. Then, instead of focusing on losing weight, he focused on becoming a fit person. He started saying, "I am someone who takes care of my body." He visualized himself feeling strong and energetic every morning. He didn't force workouts. He asked, "What would a fit person do?" and acted accordingly. At first, it was small changes, choosing water over soda, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. But over time, these tiny shifts compounded. Months later, Mike wasn't forcing himself to work out. He was a fit person now. Key takeaway. True habit change starts in the mind before it reflects in behavior. To transform your habits, shift your identity first. Act like the person you want to become. Change your self-talk. Words shape reality. Visualize success. Your brain believes what you repeatedly imagine. Once you become the person who naturally does the right things, habits no longer feel like a struggle. Chapter 6. Practical exercises to reprogram your subconscious brain. You now understand the psychology of habits, why we struggle to break them, and how to rewire them. But knowledge alone isn't enough. Transformation happens when you apply what you've learned. The subconscious mind doesn't change through theory. It changes through consistent action. That's why this chapter is all about practical exercises that will make your new habits feel effortless over time. Let's dive into 4 powerful tools that will reprogram your brain for lasting change. Exercise 1. The Habit Tracker, making habits visible and measurable. What gets measured gets improved. A habit tracker is a simple yet powerful way to reinforce new behaviors. Every time you complete your habit, you mark it on a tracker, a notebook, an app, or a calendar. Why does this work? It makes progress visible. You see how consistent you're being. It builds momentum. You won't want to break the streak. It turns small wins into motivation. Seeing your progress keeps you going. How to use it. 1. Choose a habit, e.g., drinking more water, exercising, reading. 2. Create a simple tracking system, e.g., a checklist, an app, a habit journal. 3. Each day, check off when you complete the habit. 4. Set a minimum goal. Even a small action counts, e.g., reading 1 page. Pro tip: never aim for perfection, aim for consistency. If you miss a day, just get back on track. Exercise 2, the commitment contract, using accountability to stay consistent. If your habit only depends on motivation, you'll quit when things get tough. That's why accountability is a game changer. A commitment contract makes you take your habit seriously because you attach real consequences to it. How it works. 1. Write a contract stating your commitment to your habit. 2. Set a consequence if you fail, e.g., donating money to a cause you dislike, giving $20 to a friend. 3. Find an accountability partner, someone who will hold you to your promise. 4. Sign the contract and take it seriously. Example: if you commit to waking up at 6 a.m. and fail, you must donate $10 to a cause you disagree with. This psychological trick triggers loss aversion. Your brain will work harder to avoid failure. Pro tip: make your consequence annoying, but not devastating. Enough to keep you accountable, but not so harsh that you give up. Exercise 3. The Habit Scorecard, rating your daily habits to assess progress. Most people don't realize that their daily habits are shaping their future. Some habits push you forward, while others hold you back. The Habit Scorecard helps you analyze your current behaviors and decide which ones to keep, change, or eliminate. How to use it. 1. Write down all your daily habits, big or small, e.g., checking your phone first thing in the morning, drinking coffee, skipping breakfast. 2. Next to each habit, label it. Positive: helps you grow. Negativeness: hurts your progress. Neutral: doesn't significantly impact your goals. 3. Review your scorecard. Which habits need to go? Which ones should you reinforce? This exercise creates awareness. You'll see patterns in your behavior that you never noticed before. Pro tip: don't judge yourself. This is just data. Use it to make small, meaningful improvements. Exercise 4. The if-then strategy, preparing for obstacles in advance. One reason people fail at habits is because they don't prepare for setbacks. The if-then strategy helps you create backup plans in advance. How it works. Identify a habit you're working on. Think of a common obstacle that might stop you. Create a backup plan using the formula: if obstacle happens, then I will solution. Examples: if I feel too tired to work out, then I will do just 5 minutes of exercise. If I crave junk food, then I will drink a glass of water and wait 10 minutes. If I forget to meditate in the morning, then I will do it before bed. By planning ahead, you eliminate excuses. Instead of breaking your habit, you adapt. Pro tip: keep your then response small and achievable. This keeps the momentum going even on bad days. Example story: how a chronic night owl became a morning person. Lisa had been a night owl for years. No matter how many times she tried, she couldn't wake up early. Then, she used habit tracking, commitment contracts, and the if-then strategy to transform her mornings. She tracked her wake-up time daily, rewarding herself for each early morning. She signed a commitment contract with her best friend. If she didn't wake up by 6 a.m., she had to send $10 to her least favorite politician's campaign. She planned if-then statements. If I feel tempted to hit snooze, then I will immediately drink a glass of water. At first, it was hard, but soon her brain rewired itself. Within 3 weeks, waking up early became her new normal. Key takeaway: theory without practice is useless. These exercises will make change automatic. Understanding habits is great, but real change happens through action. Track your progress. Create accountability. Analyze your habits. Prepare for obstacles in advance. Your subconscious mind follows patterns, so start creating patterns that serve you, not sabotage you. Chapter 7. How to maintain and strengthen your new habits. Building a habit is one thing. Keeping it for life is another. Most people start strong, but give up when they don't see immediate results. They think their habits aren't working and quit right before the breakthrough. This chapter will help you push through that invisible barrier and make your habits stick for the long run. The plateau of latent potential. Why habits feel like they're not working before they pay off. Imagine an ice cube sitting in a freezing room at 28 degrees Fahrenheit. You slowly raise the temperature, 29 degrees, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, 31 degrees Fahrenheit. Nothing happens. Then suddenly, at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the ice starts to melt. This is how habits work. For a while, it feels like nothing is changing. You don't see progress. You might even feel discouraged. But beneath the surface, your brain is rewiring itself. Then, one day, boom, the results appear. That's the breakthrough. Moral of the story? Keep going, even when you don't see progress. Pro tip: instead of focusing on results, e.g., I want to lose 10 pounds, focus on the process, e.g., I will exercise 3 times a week. Trust that progress is happening behind the scenes. The role of consistency. Why missing one day isn't failure, but missing 2 can be dangerous. Let's say you're trying to build the habit of reading every night. One evening, life gets busy, and you miss a day. No big deal. One missed day won't break your progress. But if you miss 2 days in a row, you start forming a new habit, the habit of skipping. The golden rule: never miss twice. If you miss one day, make sure you get back on track the next day. Think of it like brushing your teeth. If you forget to brush one morning, you don't say, oh well, I guess I'm done brushing forever. You just brush at night and move on. Miss one day? No problem. Miss 2 days? Now you're in danger of quitting. Habit stacking. Pairing new habits with existing routines to make them stick. One of the easiest ways to make a habit stick is to attach it to something you already do. This technique is called habit stacking, and it works because your brain already has strong neural connections for your current habits. Formula: after I, current habit, I will new habit. Examples: after I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 30 seconds. After I pour my morning coffee, I will read 1 page of a book. After I put on my gym shoes, I will do 10 push-ups. By linking your new habit to something automatic, it becomes easier to remember and maintain. Example story: how a woman struggling with gym consistency finally succeeded by habit stacking workouts with music playlists. Sarah always wanted to exercise regularly, but she could never stay consistent. She tried everything: morning alarms, workout buddies, expensive gym memberships, but she kept quitting. Then she discovered habit stacking. Instead of forcing herself to go to the gym, she made a rule. After I put on my favorite workout playlist, I will do a 5-minute workout. Since she loved music, putting on her playlist was easy. Once the music started, working out felt natural. At first, she only did short sessions, but soon she started craving her workouts because they were linked to something she enjoyed. Fast forward a few months, she was going to the gym 4 times a week without even thinking about it. Key takeaway: it's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. Habit formation isn't about willpower or perfection. It's about small, consistent actions that compound over time. Trust the process, even when you don't see results. Never miss twice. Bounce back immediately. Use habit stacking. Attach new habits to existing routines. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep showing up. And when you do, your new habits will become a natural part of who you are. Chapter 8. Overcoming setbacks and preventing relapse. Building a habit is hard. Keeping it for life? Even harder. At some point you'll slip. Maybe stress hits, life gets chaotic, or old cravings resurface. That's normal. What separates successful people from quitters isn't whether they fail. It's how they recover. This chapter will teach you how to handle setbacks without giving up. Why setbacks are normal. The difference between a lapse and a relapse. There's a huge difference between a lapse and a relapse. A lapse is a temporary slip. Maybe you skip a workout or eat junk food after weeks of clean eating. A relapse is when you fall back into your old habit permanently. The biggest mistake? Thinking a small slip means total failure. Imagine dropping your phone. You wouldn't say, "Oh well, might as well smash it with a hammer now." You just pick it up and keep going. Treat setbacks the same way. A single mistake doesn't erase your progress. The psychology of slipping back, understanding the emotional triggers of regression. Most people don't relapse because they want to. They relapse because of emotional triggers like stress. When overwhelmed, your brain craves comfort, often through old habits. Boredom. Without stimulation, you might return to bad habits just to feel something. Negative self-talk. If you believe "I always fail," you'll act accordingly. The key to preventing relapse? Recognize your triggers before they control you. Keep a journal. Every time you slip, write down. What happened? How did you feel? What triggered it? Once you see the pattern, you can break it. The never miss twice rule. How to bounce back after failure. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. One missed workout won't ruin your progress. Skipping an entire month will. Eating one unhealthy meal won't derail your diet. Giving up will. The golden rule? Never miss twice. If you skip one day, make sure you get back on track the next day. This prevents a lapse from turning into a full relapse. Example story. A recovering sugar addict who overcame multiple relapses by adjusting his environment. David struggled with sugar addiction for years. He'd go weeks without sweets, then suddenly binge on cookies and soda. At first, he saw these moments as proof that he'd never change. He felt guilty, lost motivation, and fell back into his old habits. But then, he made one simple shift. He changed his environment. He stopped keeping junk food at home. He carried healthy snacks everywhere. He replaced his stress-eating habit with a walk outside. The next time he slipped, he bounced back fast because he had no junk food in the house to keep the binge going. Over time, his slip-ups became smaller and less frequent. Eventually, his sugar cravings disappeared altogether. Key takeaway. Falling off track doesn't mean failure. It's part of the journey. You will mess up, that's guaranteed. What matters is how fast you recover. Remember, a lapse isn't a relapse. Identify your emotional triggers. Use the never miss twice rule. Adjust your environment to prevent slip-ups. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. And as long as you keep going, you'll never truly fail. Chapter 9, The Science of Lasting Change. Making new habits permanent. Building a habit is one thing. Keeping it for life? That's the real challenge. Most people try to change habits with sheer willpower, but willpower fades. Identity lasts. In this chapter, you'll learn how to make your habits a permanent part of who you are. How to make habits part of your identity. The shift from trying to being. Most people approach habits the wrong way. They say, "I'm trying to eat healthy. I'm trying to be more productive." That mindset keeps change temporary, because if you're just trying, it's easy to stop. Instead, shift your identity. I am a healthy person. I am someone who values productivity. When a habit becomes part of your identity, you don't need motivation, it's just who you are. How long-term habits shape success. The compounding power of small daily actions. Imagine two people. Person A reads for 10 minutes every day. Person B never reads. One day, the difference is small. After a year, Person A has read over 3,650 minutes, about 12 books. Small habits seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they compound into massive change. Exercising 3x a week, fit body in a year. Saving $5 a day, $1,825 saved in a year. Writing 200 words daily, a full book in a year. The key to success? Consistency beats intensity. The no finish line mindset. How to embrace growth as a lifelong process. Many people fall into the trap of temporary change. They lose weight, then stop working out. They build a habit, then slip back into old patterns. They reach a goal, then return to square one. Why? Because they see habits as a means to an end. The truth? There is no finish line. Success isn't about reaching a goal. It's about becoming the type of person who naturally maintains those habits. Don't ask, how long do I have to do this? Ask, who do I want to become? Example story. A once unmotivated student who became a disciplined, high-achieving professional through one small daily habit. James was an average student. No motivation, no discipline. One day, he made a small decision. He would study for just 5 minutes every day. At first, it felt pointless, but 5 minutes turned into 15, then 30, then an hour. Over time, studying became part of who he was. Years later, James became a top-performing professional, not because of talent, but because he mastered one small daily habit. Key takeaway: the ultimate goal isn't just to change habits, it's to change who you are. Don't try to change. Become the kind of person who naturally does it. Small daily actions compound into massive success over time. There is no finish line. Growth is a lifelong process. The best way to keep a habit? Make it part of your identity. Because when it's who you are, you'll never need motivation again. Final chapter: your reprogramming blueprint, a step-by-step action plan. You've come a long way. By now, you understand how habits work, why they're so hard to change, and the science behind lasting transformation. But knowledge alone isn't enough. Action is what makes the difference. This chapter will give you a clear, step-by-step blueprint to implement everything you've learned, so change becomes automatic. Summarizing the key lessons. A quick recap: habits run on loops. Cue, routine, reward. Change the loop, change the habit. Willpower is a limited resource. The key to change isn't fighting habits, it's rewiring them. Your identity shapes your behavior. If you see yourself as a healthy person, you'll act like one. Small daily actions create big results. It's not about giant leaps, it's about small, consistent steps. Your environment controls you. Make good habits easy and bad habits hard. Setbacks aren't failures. Missing one day won't break you, but missing two can start a downward spiral. Your personalized habit plan, a guided step-by-step process. 1. Pick one habit to change. Don't try to change everything at once. Start with one key habit that will have the biggest impact. 2. Identify your habit loop. What triggers your habit? What routine follows? What reward do you get from it? 3. Modify the cue or reward. Can you remove or change the trigger? Can you replace the reward with something healthier? Use the 2-minute rule. Make the new habit so easy that you can't fail. 5. Stack your habits. Pair your new habit with an existing one for effortless consistency. 6. Track and celebrate small wins. Keep a habit tracker. Every checkmark builds momentum. 7. Expect setbacks and plan for them. If you slip, use the never miss twice rule. 8. Reinforce your identity. Stop saying, "I'm trying to change." Start saying, "I am this kind of person." Final words of motivation. Habit change is not about perfection. It's about persistence. There will be setbacks. There will be days when you feel stuck, but every small step forward counts. You are not controlled by your old habits. You are not bound by past failures. You have the power to rewrite your story. The question is, who do you want to become? Your new life starts today. Take the first step.